I started my night shift at the gas station on Route 19 thinking it would be the easiest job in the world. Just sell some snacks, ring up a few packs of smokes, maybe clean up a spill or two if someone got sloppy with their coffee. But the moment my boss handed me a yellowed, handwritten note before leaving, I felt a weird unease settle in my stomach. "Follow these rules," he muttered, barely making eye contact. I almost laughed when I read them. Rule number 1. If a black sedan parks at pump number 4, do not acknowledge it. Rule number 2. Never check the security cameras after 3 a.m. There were more, but those two stood out. They sounded ridiculous, like some kind of inside joke among employees. I stuffed the paper in my pocket and got ready for a long, boring shift. For the first few hours, everything was normal. A few truckers stopped by for coffee. A couple of teens tried to buy beer with fake IDs, the usual. I barely thought about the stupid rules until 2:47 a.m. That's when the black sedan rolled in, slow and deliberate, and parked at pump number 4. My first instinct was to glance at the driver, but I stopped myself. Something about the way the car just sat there, engine running, made my skin crawl. I tried to focus on the register, pretending I wasn't hyper-aware of the presence just outside. Minutes passed, and the car didn't move. No one got out. No one even seemed to be inside. I was gripping the counter, so hard my knuckles turned white. That's when I made my first mistake. I stole a quick glance at the sedan. Just a flick of my eyes, barely a second, but it was enough. My breath hitched. There was no driver. No movement inside. Just darkness behind the tinted windows, as if the interior swallowed any light that tried to enter. My heart pounded, and I immediately looked away, forcing myself to focus on the register screen like nothing was wrong. Maybe it was just some guy sleeping in his car, I told myself. Maybe the windows were just extra dark. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. The air in the station felt heavy, suffocating. Even the hum of the refrigerator units in the back seemed quieter, like the entire building was holding its breath along with me. I kept my head down and tried to distract myself by checking the clock. 2:55 a.m. Just 5 more minutes, and maybe the car would leave. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the gas pump's digital screen flicker, like someone had lifted the nozzle. The problem was no one had. The car was still there, untouched, unmoving. My stomach twisted. The screen continued flickering, as if an invisible hand was selecting options. The pump beeped, and then I heard it, the sound of gas flowing. My chest tightened. I was alone in that store, watching a ghost or something worse fill up an empty car. That's when I panicked. I reached for the security monitor. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I hesitated. Rule number 2. Never check the security cameras after 3 a.m. It wasn't 3 a.m. yet, so technically, I wasn't breaking the rule. That's what I told myself anyway. My hands were clammy as I clicked to switch views. The grainy footage from pump number 4 loaded on the screen, and I instantly wished I had listened. The black sedan was there, just like in real life, but the footage was wrong. The timestamp read 3:23 a.m. My stomach lurched. That wasn't possible. I checked my phone, 2:58 a.m. I looked back at the screen, and that's when I saw it. A figure, tall and thin, standing beside the sedan. My blood turned to ice. The thing wasn't human. Its limbs were too long, its head tilted unnaturally to one side, like it was broken. The worst part? It was facing the camera. Facing me. I swear it could see me through the screen. My breath came in short, panic bursts as I tried to tear my eyes away, but I couldn't. I was frozen, trapped in my own fear. The figure twitched, then moved. Slowly. Deliberately. One step closer to the camera. My pulse hammered in my ears. Another step. Closer. Closer. My phone vibrated on the counter, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. My boss's name flashed on the screen. I fumbled to answer, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. I pressed the phone to my ear, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hello?" Static. No response. Then, just as I was about to hang up, a voice came through, but it wasn't my boss. It was distorted, garbled, like someone was speaking underwater. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was wrong. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a warning. It was something else. A low, guttural sound followed, like the speaker was choking or growling. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to hang up, but I couldn't move. I was stuck there, clutching the phone, listening to something that shouldn't exist. Then, the gas station lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then everything went dark. The phone call cut out. My breathing turned ragged as I stared at the security monitor, the only thing still working. The figure was still there, but now it was right in front of the camera. Its face, if you could call it that, was just a dark void, like someone had smudged out its features. But it wasn't the lack of a face that made my skin crawl. It was the fact that I knew it was looking at me. A deep, nauseating dread settled in my stomach. Then, as if it knew I was watching, its head twitched to the side in a slow, deliberate motion. And that's when the security screen shut off. I was plunged into total darkness. The hum of the refrigerators, the faint buzzing of the overhead lights, all of it was gone. The only sound left was my own ragged breathing. My hands were shaking so badly that I fumbled around the counter, desperately searching for my phone. My fingers finally closed around it, and I clicked the screen on. 2:59 a.m. My chest tightened. It had felt like an eternity had passed since I saw the figure on the monitor, but according to my phone, only 1 minute had gone by. That was impossible. I swallowed hard, trying to force my mind to make sense of it. Then a noise. It was faint at first, like a soft scraping against the glass door at the front of the station. My stomach clenched. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see. But some primal part of me needed to know. Slowly, my eyes lifted toward the entrance. The glass was fogged over, the outside world just a shapeless blur beyond it. And then a handprint. It appeared out of nowhere, smearing across the glass like someone had pressed their palm against it, from the inside. My breath caught in my throat. The handprint was on my side of the glass. My entire body locked up. I knew I was alone in that store. There was no one else. But that handprint was fresh, the streaks of condensation still shifting down the glass. I took a step back, my legs feeling weak, every nerve in my body screaming at me to run. But where? The doors were automatic, and I sure as hell wasn't stepping outside where that thing had been. My only option was to hide. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the stool behind the counter, and ducked down. The only light in the station was the faint glow of my phone's screen, casting eerie shadows across the floor. I tried to steady my breathing, tried to think. What the hell was happening? Then the chime above the door dinged. My stomach twisted into knots. Something had stepped inside. I could hear soft, deliberate footsteps against the tile floor, slow and heavy, like whoever it was knew I was there, but wasn't in any hurry to find me. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping my phone so tight my fingers ached. I wanted to check the time, but I was too afraid the glow would give me away. The steps stopped. Silence. Then from just beyond the counter a breath. Low, ragged, almost inhuman. My pulse pounded so hard I thought it might be loud enough to give me away. Then came the worst part. A whisper. So quiet, so impossibly close. And though I couldn't make out the words, I knew one thing for sure. It was saying my name. I felt cold all over, like my blood had turned to ice. My name, it had whispered my name. I hadn't spoken, hadn't made a sound. So how did it know? My hands were slick with sweat, and my breaths came in short, panicked bursts. I wanted to stay completely still, but my body betrayed me. I shifted just the smallest movement, barely an inch. The floor creaked. My heart stopped. The whispering cut off instantly. Silence. The kind that presses down on you, suffocating, stretching out into eternity. Then movement. A slow, deliberate tap on the counter above me, like fingers drumming. Tap, tap, tap. My whole body seized up. Whatever it was right above me. I bit down on my lip, trying to keep myself from making any sound, but my lungs burned from holding my breath. I had to do something. I had to get out. Slowly, I tilted my phone, just enough to peek at the time. 3 a.m. A wave of static burst through the store's speakers, so loud and sudden that I flinched. The tapping stopped. Then a sharp, deafening crash. The shelves behind me toppled over as if something had slammed into them, sending snacks and drinks scattering across the floor. My body acted on instinct. I bolted. Scrambling to my feet, I didn't even think. I just ran. I didn't stop to look back. I couldn't. My only thought was getting the hell out of that gas station. I sprinted toward the storage room, shoving the door open so hard it nearly came off the hinges. I slammed it shut behind me, locking it with shaking hands. The room was small, lined with shelves stacked with cleaning supplies and boxes of inventory. No windows. No way out. My chest heaved as I pressed my back against the cold metal shelving, trying to listen past the pounding of my own heartbeat. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Just silence. And then the door handle rattled. I swallowed hard, gripping my phone like it could somehow protect me. It was trying to get in. A slow, deliberate turn of the handle. Testing. Then a knock. 3 soft, almost polite taps. Like it was asking permission to enter. My breath hitched. My mind screamed at me to stay silent, to not make a sound. But then my phone buzzed in my hand. A notification. I barely stopped myself from letting out a strangled cry. The screen lit up, casting an eerie glow in the pitch-black room. A new text. My stomach dropped when I saw the sender. It was my own number. The message was short, just 2 words. Look outside. I didn't want to. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to ignore it, to pretend I never saw the message. But my hands moved on their own, shaky fingers swiping across the screen to unlock my phone. My breath hitched as I switched to the security feed. It was back on. The cameras were working again. But what I saw made my stomach twist into a tight, painful knot. The black sedan was still at pump number 4, untouched. But standing in front of it, directly in view of the camera, was me. I nearly dropped the phone. My own reflection, but it wasn't right. The version of me on the screen stood perfectly still, arms hanging limp at its sides, head tilted at a sickening angle. Its eyes, my eyes, were just hollow pits of darkness. My throat closed up. This wasn't just a glitch. This wasn't a bad angle or a trick of the light. It was something else. Something wearing my face. And then, as if it knew I was watching, it lifted one hand. Slowly, deliberately. And pointed right at the camera. Right at me. I couldn't breathe. My own face, or whatever was wearing it, was staring straight at me through the screen, pointing like it had been waiting for me to see it. My hands trembled so badly that my phone nearly slipped from my grip. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it smiled. A slow, unnatural curl of the lips, too wide, too wrong. I choked back a whimper. The knock at the storage door came again, 3 soft taps. My head snapped toward it, my pulse hammering in my ears. Whatever was outside hadn't left. It was waiting. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. I knew I couldn't stay there forever. My only option was to run. But where? My car was outside, but that meant passing through the store, past whatever was at the door. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to move. The second I unlocked my phone to check the cameras again, the screen glitched. The security feed distorted, lines of static warping the image. But through the interference, I saw it. The thing in the camera was gone. My stomach lurched. I turned back toward the door just in time to see the handle start turning. Slowly. I had no choice. The second that handle fully turned, I knew whatever was on the other side would get in. And I couldn't let that happen. I took a deep breath, braced myself, and threw my weight against the door, shoving it open with everything I had. The second it swung wide, the store was empty. No figure. No sound. Just rows of shelves, the dull hum of the refrigerators back on, and the automatic doors leading outside. My heart was still racing, my body screaming at me to move, so I didn't hesitate. I bolted for the exit, slamming my hand against the glass to force the doors open. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but I didn't stop. I ran straight to my car, fumbling for my keys with shaking hands. As I yanked open the door and threw myself inside, I risked one last look at the gas station. Everything looked normal, like nothing had happened. But just as I turned the key in the ignition, my headlights illuminated pump number 4. The black sedan was gone. Vanished. I never heard an engine, never saw it leave. It was just gone. My skin prickled with cold dread. And then, from the darkness of the store behind the glass doors, I saw it. A shape. Still. Watching. Waiting. I didn't stay to find out what it wanted. I peeled out of that parking lot, tires screeching against the pavement, and I've never set foot near Route 19 again. But sometimes late at night, when I'm alone, I swear I hear those 3 soft taps. Subscribe to the channel and discover real personal stories.